LaMonte Wade's numbers aren't pretty and fans are getting angsty, but don't expect him to lose his grip on first base anytime soon.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, hosting this show for over 6 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. So check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And coming up on today's show, we're going to get into the situation at first base. Wade's cold stretch has fans asking questions, but Jerar Encarnacion isn't knocking down the door just yet. Neither is anyone else. We'll also get into the rotation, and it's not perfect, but don't expect Birdsong or Harrison to break through just yet. And then finally, early team MVP picks, biggest needs, and perhaps one move that could elevate the Giants. But first, getting into LaMonte Wade and just the first base situation for the Giants. Did I mention this is a mailbag episode? So thank you so much to everyone who submitted questions. King of Norway says, is LaMonte Wade Jr. under serious DFA threat right now? What does first base and DH look like going forward? Wade is finally showing signs of life, and we know Bob Melvin and company are patient/loyal with players. Jerar Encarnacion would almost certainly bump Wisely or VR out of the 26-man roster. And then King of Norway says, would this work? Versus right-handed pitchers, Wade at first, Flores at DH, Encarnacion as a player on the bench/pinch hitter, versus left-handed pitching, Flores at first, Encarnacion as the DH, and Wade on the bench / as a pinch hitter. And so I think that you answered the question, your own question, kind of correctly with the second half of it. Like, the first half, is Wade under serious DFA threat right now? No way, in my opinion. No way, because what are you doing instead? Like, okay, you might say, put Flores at first base all the time. Well, Flores is playing like every day, and so that would essentially just make you, I mean, look, I suppose you could say, okay, Luis Matos is your everyday DH, but I think that they're a deeper team without doing such a thing, and then you'd have to call somebody else up, and then somebody else is on your bench. I don't know, maybe it's like a Marco Luciano or something, so I suppose you could do it. But to me, the way that you mentioned also that Wade is finally showing signs of life is a good point and a crucial point, because he has a track record in his Giants career, counting this year. Let's do him the service of counting this year. He's hit, well, I have to point out, a 242 batting average is what he has, and that's probably right around league average over that span. But the on-base percentage, 346, that's going to be way over average during that span, and a 405 slugging, that's also probably a little bit above average during that span. And so you add it all up, and it's been about 10% above average offense by LaMonte Wade Jr., and you might say the bar should be higher at first base, but overall, teams would take 10% above average. That's probably above average for the position in general. I'm actually going to look first baseman this season in the major leagues. have a 103 weighted runs created plus. So overall this year, first basemen are hitting 238, 318 on base, 403 slugging. So it's not like, oh, this is a position where every team's getting 25% above average offense. No. So for Wade, if he could just play to his career norms, that would be above average for first baseman. And so I'm going to give him the benefit of not judging him based on 33 games and instead looking at his track record. And we could go even more recent and just say the last 3 years, starting in 2023, he's been even better, 12% above average with more of a on-base buoy, 363 on base during that time. So, yeah, I think that the way you answered it is that VR coming off the roster, say when Encarnacion comes back, makes more sense than Wade, in my opinion. And it is the last year of Wade's contract. I would just like to see it play out. I think that over the course of time, he'll probably turn it around, and we're starting to see that. And then the way you drew it out, against righties, I might say Wade at first. Yeah, it could be either Flores or Encarnacion DHing. And then against lefties, Flores at first, and then Wade hitting the bench. And then that's just a good guy to have coming off the bench. So he has kind of been forced to play a little bit against lefties. Or it's been like VR in his place or Casey Schmidt. And that's the suboptimal move, in my opinion. And so, yeah, I just think more time for Wade will bear out that he's better than what we've seen, and the long track record of doing it speaks to that. Okay, so I don't even know how to say this. Bugafer9 says the DH first base situation will be a debacle once Encarnacion is back. Do you think he will get reps at first, or will Wilmer get reps at first while Encarnacion gets DH? And what does that mean for Wade, especially if he doesn't turn it around by this time? So once again, I see Wade and Flores and Encarnacion all fitting on the roster just fine. I think it's the VR and Casey Schmidt. VR replaced Casey Schmidt on the roster when Schmidt got hurt. Those guys are less likely to stick around. Although if Wade is still struggling like in a month plus from now, then maybe we reconsider. But I would give him that time and expect him to play a lot better by then. And so I don't really see it as a debacle. I think King of Norway had it right, where Wade or Flores would start at first depending on who's pitching, and then Encarnacion could kind of just DH. And that wouldn't really bump anyone off except VR, currently VR, and previously Schmidt. And finally, Max Renard says LaMonte Wade has been pretty mediocre, that's generous, to start the season, though slightly better in recent games. Does he turn it around? Shouldn't first base be a premium offensive position? And I did essentially answer that already, in that ideally, yes, it's a premium offensive position, but Major League average is worse than that. Like, it's worth noting that Major League average is just that first basemen have been a little better than average offensively. And Wade has been way worse than that. He's been one of the worst players in the game. If you look at, wins above replacement, also offensively about 50% below average. I mentioned that in his Giants career, he's been 10% above average, counting this stretch this year. And even in the most recent 3 years, counting this year, what did I say? 13% above average. So give him time. I think he'll come around. And yeah, so I'm going to just preach patience when it comes to LaMonte Wade. And we are starting to see it. He had a good game, the last game in Chicago. Now he goes back to Minnesota, the team that traded him to the Giants. And so we'll see if he can keep things going and get back on track playing his former team. Now, the rotation isn't perfect, but don't expect Birdsong or Harrison to break through just yet. That conversation in just a minute. And before we get into it, today's episode of Locked on Giants is brought to you in part by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for the skilled trade. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you will find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. It's a good time to be a Warriors fan, although we're a little concerned about Steph Curry. But every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. With Steph Curry going down, we're looking at the other Warriors like Jimmy Butler to potentially show up in the biggest moments. And also the thrill of potentially $200 in bonus bets, adding excitement if that first $5 bet wins. It's just, you can't beat it. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, as promised, the starting pitching. It hasn't been perfect. It definitely hasn't been perfect, but don't expect Birdsong or Harrison to break through just yet. Verlander's winless, Hicks' ERA is over 6, and there's rising pressure to turn to top prospects, and I understand that. Thanks again for making Locked on Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we are going to be getting to more of your mailbag questions and also potentially previewing this series against the Twins. The Twins are a little bit underrated, in my opinion. They haven't performed up to expectations, so we'll be getting you ready for that, in addition to getting to more mailbag questions. We had, once again, like 50. So anyway, like I said, Verlander can't get a dub. Hicks has an ERA over 6. So understandably, there's rising pressure from fans to turn to top prospects like Kyle Harrison and Hayden Birdsong. So Giant Hot Takes podcast says, how soon before Birdsong or Harrison hit the rotation, and who is more likely? So how soon? I think that it would take, at this point, probably an injury or wanting to manage the innings of someone like Landon Roop. And really, in my opinion, before we get to some of the other questions, which are going to get more specifically into certain veteran pitchers, because you've got your no doubt guy in Logan Webb. You've got your 3 veterans in Robbie Ray, Justin Verlander, and Jordan Hicks. And then you've got Landon Roop. And so, notably, all of these guys have pretty darn good expected ERAs, but I think that those veterans are safer than you might think. And so when you say how soon, there's a few different ways this could go. either somebody gets hurt, and then that's an obvious answer, but I can't predict when that would be, or they want to manage innings and maybe, or someone like Jordan Hicks starts to wear down again like he did last year, or like I said, manage innings for a guy like Landon Roop. I think that could be the most likely, is that they just swap out Landon Roop so that he doesn't have too much of a big workload, especially if that ERA continues to be a little bit elevated. It is the second highest in the rotation behind Jordan Hicks's ERA, which is over 6. So I understand the questions there, and I think there's a specific question about him, so I'll save that for just a minute. And then finally, the third option would be, say you get closer to the trade deadline and you decide you want to give maybe Birdsong or Harrison, or both are just pitching great out of the bullpen, and you decide you want to give them a real opportunity to start, and then maybe you make a trade, or you trade from that surplus of young talent, or just from a surplus of arms, and you trade a Birdsong or a Harrison for some kind of impact elsewhere. So there's so many different ways that this could play out. I think the most likely would be someone at some point has some kind of minor injury at the very least, and that gives Harrison or Birdsong an opportunity. And at this point, it's hard to say which of the two would get that opportunity. Birdsong made the opening day roster, and Harrison didn't, so it's easy to kind of say Birdsong, but also Harrison is throwing 97 all of a sudden, and he also pitched like all of last year in the rotation, and he was considered a top prospect. Birdsong wasn't so much, but I don't know how much that would weigh into a decision. I just mean that the industry kind of views the upside of Harrison as greater than Birdsong, but watching them, I can see them both having significant upside. So it's hard to answer that question. I'd probably lean towards Kyle Harrison just because he's done it more, and he's suddenly throwing hard again. And I think that is very intriguing, because 92, 93 is very different than like 96, 97. And so if he could do that out of the rotation and pump strikes, then that's super intriguing. But so is Birdsong. So it's a good problem to have right now. So Kevin says, when will Birdsong or Harrison replace Hicks in the rotation? So this gives me an opportunity to discuss Jordan Hicks specifically. So Hicks is 28 years old. It's easy to think of him as like this longtime veteran, because he is. He's been in the majors since 2018, but he is just 28 years old pretty much for the whole season, turns 29 in September. And the ERA is 6.03. However, the expected ERA is 3.52. The fielding independent pitching, 3.41. Everything kind of the ERA predictors is in the threes, and the actual ERA is 6. Why? Well, he's stranded only 57% of the base runners he's allowed. And this is a conversation I have every year, that at the end of the day, pitchers strand about 72% of their base runners. It's just this phenomenon that occurs. And so when you see a strand rate of 57%, it essentially just means you are going to strand, you have not stranded as many runners as we should expect you to strand moving forward. So it's not that he's allowing necessarily a ton of base runners. It's that the base runners that do get on are scoring at a rate that is higher than we should expect moving forward. And just to give you an example, last year, Hicks stranded 75.4% of his base runners. In his career, Hicks has stranded 71% of his base runners. And so all of a sudden, 57%, it's just a sustainability thing. And then when you back it up with the expected ERA, the fielding independent pitching, he's getting ground balls at a crazy high rate, 59%. They're probably just finding holes is what that looks like to me. And then the stuff quality is really good. Like all his sinker, his slider, his splitter have all graded as really good pitches. He's throwing hard. Like I would not take Hicks out of the rotation right now. I think that you wait for this stuff. I think the ERA is going to come down, get like magnetically drawn down closer to where that ERA and fielding independent pitching are, which is about 3.5 versus the actual ERA of 6.03. I think he's been unlucky, and we should look to for him to get better moving forward. It is worth pointing out he, in his career, has been a guy who has underperformed his fielding independent pitching. Career fielding independent pitching, 384. Career ERA, 4.13. But those numbers are close-ish. Right now, his ERA is 2.5, more than 2.5, 2.6 runs higher than his fielding independent pitching versus like 0.2 runs higher, or 0.3, which is what his career discrepancy is. So I just want to continue to see Hicks go out there. I'm not ready to just replace him. But he is a candidate. Like, I think that was not one of the things I mentioned. I did say if he wears down. If it's over a significantly larger stretch, like give it another month or two, and he's still, or just a month if it's really bad, and he's still giving up a lot of runs, then you could easily just put him in the bullpen and add to what's been a really good bullpen. And now the next question is Verlander with 0 wins and 8 starts. Bad luck or bad stuff? This is coming from Giants Glazer. Verlander with 0 wins and 8 starts. Bad luck or bad stuff? How long before Buster goes to a young gun in the pen? And Mr. J. Scotty Rice, 55, says, do you see Birdsong and Harrison coming out of the bullpen the majority of the year? So clearly for Verlander, though, bad luck with the 0 wins. I mean, 3 out of his last 4 starts, they had a lead in the 8th or 9th with him in line for the win. And so I definitely can't look at the 0 wins and say that's a reflection per se of the performance. However, I could pretty comfortably say that Verlander has been, by at least kind of peripheral numbers, their worst pitcher. And this is not shocking for a guy who's 42 years old, but ERA is 4.50, expected ERA is 4.39, fielding independent pitching 4.42, expected fielding independent pitching 4.42, strikeout rate is below average. Like, he just seems like a 42-year-old pitcher, formerly great pitcher, who's still solid, but nothing special. But I think he's the least likely to get moved to the bullpen. So anyway, I think he's a perfectly serviceable back of the rotation starter with the potential to go out there and have really good games. But also, I think he looks like a 42-year-old. Well, he doesn't really, because he's still throwing hard, but he's not dominating, nor do I expect him to dominate. It's more back of the rotation kind of performance, which is fine. But, you know, he could be one of those guys who perhaps you think about trading to a contender, only a team that he would want to get traded to, because he has a no trade clause if he wanted to get traded at all. It's up to him, really. But that's one possibility when I mentioned trades, is clearing away the 42-year-old in favor of perhaps one of your young guys dominating out of the rotation. And then in terms of Birdsong and Harrison coming out of the bullpen the majority of the year, I don't see them just getting put in there, but into the rotation, because there's not obvious ways to do it. So it would depend on things that I can't predict, like injuries, and also a trade or bad performance that we're not seeing in the peripheral numbers. Also just conserving. I think that Landon Root probably gets a breather at some point, just so they don't overwork him, and Birdsong or Harrison would probably replace him. And then there's others who we've mentioned. Hicks, if he doesn't perform, could go to the pen. Verlander could get traded if he would want to get traded, if, everything I already said. So it's really hard to predict how it's all going to go down. But I think for the most part, some guys like Robbie Ray and Jordan Hicks, like you're getting, I don't know, for Ray, I could go on and on about him and what he's been able to do and how some of the underlying numbers don't support what he's done, but some of them do. We haven't even mentioned him. It is a mess, but it's okay. These guys can pitch out of the bullpen. Injuries happen, though, and things change. But for now, I just can't say. It's just very hard to know. So coming up in just a minute, what's clicking, what's missing, and how to keep the momentum heading toward the trade deadline in July. We'll break it down in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, I have some on my desk right here as we speak, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are, of course, a classic favorite. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, here we go. We're going to get into early team MVP picks, the Giants' biggest needs, and perhaps the one move that could elevate the Giants to the next level. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow. We've got a whole new 3 segments of related mailbag questions. And also, I do want to get you set for this 3-game series in Minnesota. And it's a big one. I mean, every series, every game is big, but the Giants coming off that series win and the Twins playing better, and they're actually like a better team than you might think. So be on the lookout for that tomorrow. So Ted says, Ted from Indiana. Hi, Ted. Lifelong Giants fan. What do you believe is the Giants' biggest need in order to make the team elite? Go Giants. Okay, so the biggest need in order to make the team elite is, I can only pick one thing. So I think that I'm going to have to say that it has to be, for me, probably like if they could have an impact first baseman, then that would make a difference. Like LaMonte Wade, serviceable as I think he is, and then like platooning with Wilmer Flores. How about if you had Wade and Flores on your bench, or one of them starting at DH, and you've got Encarnacion in that mix. But if you had, think of the best first baseman in the league, whether it's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. or Bryce Harper, who's been a first baseman since having an elbow issue, that would take this team over the top, in my opinion. Like, it would just make the offense way more dynamic if you had a guy who could hit, and really at any position, but I'm just thinking of where is the biggest opening right now. You don't have an opening at catcher. I think you want to see what Fitzgerald can do when he comes back from his rib fracture. The left side of the infield is locked up long term. Elliot Ramos is doing enough to certainly hold down that spot. Jung Hoo Lee's been very good, and Mike Yastrzemski's been good, although he's in the last year of his contract. And so perhaps you say, well, if you can't get a first baseman, then get a right fielder or something. But anyway, just a big hitter in the middle of the lineup who could hit 30 at least. Come on, it's been since '04, over 20 years since they've had someone hit 30 home runs, unbelievably. But how about a 40 home run type hitter in the middle of the lineup? Like, that is, to me, the biggest need. The rotation, you could point there too, like to have a real legitimate like ace or co-ace with Logan Webb would be huge, but I'd give me that everyday extremely good bat. Whether it could be a DH too, like a Yordan Alvarez. They're not going to be able to get these guys, but that would be the thing that would take them over the top. Daniel says, should the Giants make a trade to acquire a big bat for the middle of their lineup? Clearly, in my opinion, that would go a long way. And with Buster Posey running the show, I do expect, obviously, a different approach to the trade deadline than we've seen in recent years, when they've just kind of done minor moves and kind of tried to thread the needle between like buying and selling and all this. It's possible you see Buster Posey be a little bit more dramatic, especially with the team performing well. We've got a ways to go before the trade deadline. It's only May 8th. So like almost 3 months to go before the trade deadline. But nonetheless, yeah, I'd like to see a big bat in the middle of their lineup. And they've got some pieces to trade when it comes to like the young pitching specifically. And I also don't want to like create a logjam at first base, because you have Bryce Eldridge, top prospect, plays first base, coming down the pipeline. So doing well at Double-A right now. So, and he's 20 years old. So it's tough. I wouldn't want to create a logjam there down the road. So maybe if there's a rental out there, we'd have to scour who's available. It depends on how teams are playing and all that. Anyway, Jordan Sport SX says, who do you think is the team's current MVP, and who do you think will end the season as the team MVP? So right now it is, it's hard to say. Like, is it Logan Webb is a pitcher? I don't want to give a pitcher an MVP. Logan Webb might hate that I said that, but I think without Logan Webb, this is such a different team, but also it would create an opportunity. Heaven forbid you lose Logan Webb, but would create an opportunity for one of those younger arms. But you could easily answer this and say Logan Webb, but I like to give the MVP. If you ask me for Cy Young, that's an easy answer, but I want to give the MVP to a position player, and I think that it has to be Jung Hoo Lee. Jung Hoo Lee has been a revelation. He was so hot to start the year. He cooled off, and then he's kind of gotten hot again, although his most recent game wasn't very good. But Jung Hoo Lee, I think for me, is the team MVP so far. And at the end of the year, it could be a number of guys. It could be Jung Hoo Lee. It could be Matt Chapman. It could be Logan Webb. The safe pick is probably to say Logan Webb, but again, I'll give him my Cy Young, and I'll say that probably Lee or Chapman for sure would be my picks. Which one? I'll just say Lee, because I want him to keep it going. Next question, last question. Daniel says, who has impressed you the most with this hot start? And it's got to be, again, Jung Hoo Lee. It's certainly not Willy Adames, although I wish him the best and I believe in him, and it's just been a bit of a rough start for Adames on all sides of the ball. But it's got to be Jung Hoo Lee. Like, he's exceeded expectations with what he's been able to do, and it makes sense why they gave this guy over $100 million contract. We're seeing why. So anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, I'm Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot, so thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening today. You are now Locked On Giants.